Thank you for joining the Conscious Life Expo podcast. I am Kristine Augustyn. I'm a producer with the Expo, and I am here today as your host. I'm very excited about this interview I'm about to do with Melanie Aguirre. You may be familiar with Melanie already, as she's been hosting this podcast here, but today we're going to find out more about her, as Melanie has a really exciting workshop at the Expo coming up. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Melanie. She is an author, a researcher, a hypnotist, and reveals revelations through QHHT. She rewrites history while shining a light on ancient hidden knowledge, sacred wisdom, lost education, lost timelines, and ancient civilizations. Her workshop is going to be on Friday, February 9th at 2 p.m. and it's called Conversations with Anubis. So let's meet Melanie.
Hi, Kristine. Thank you for having me today.
Very excited that I get to be on the other side of this and learn more about you, and so that everybody can learn more about you today. So tell me something about you that no one else knows.
Oh, wow, that's getting pretty deep, pretty steep real quick. Well, let's start with I guess how I got started. So through childhood, I've always just been very sensitive, highly sensitive, very in tune, very awake. I grew up through my teens wondering, why am I in this different body that looks different? And I always felt left out or set aside, maybe a little weird at times, maybe still weird at times, even now. But through life, I've discovered that I'm a star seed, and a star seed is basically a soul being that comes from another galaxy or lineage, star lineage, that comes to Earth to assist the humans within their awakening. And so, it wasn't right away that I learned that or discovered that. I actually started off as a massage therapist. And when I learned that that wasn't the right path for me, I kind of dove further into Reiki. So I'm also a Reiki master and teacher. And, even after that, I was still unhappy with my path. And so from there, I asked the universe for a different path. And of course, they handed it to me really, very, very well. I was T-boned in a car accident, and that left me permanently disabled from the waist down. And it really shook up my life. I wasn't able to do massage therapy, and I I was not happy completely just doing Reiki or energy work. I was still seeking something else out there. And so as time went on, I learned that surrendering was the best thing for me to do. Not only was I disabled, but my whole life had seemed like it was turned upside down. And for me, it was one of those things that was hard to swallow because I didn't understand why my life was so challenged and disabled. I had handicap placards. I couldn't get out of bed. And there was just so much more to life that I had to live, but I didn't understand why I was stuck in this position of being disabled at 29 years old. And so after about 2.5 or 3 years, I finally had received some messages from the universe, and through the power of alignment, I found Dolores Cannon's quantum healing hypnosis technique. And of course, that was the light bulb for me. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And how I discovered it was through YouTube, and I saw somebody giving somebody a session. I didn't know that that was a hypnotherapist. I didn't know that that person was under regression. Again, I didn't know what was going on. I just knew that that's what I wanted to do, because the information that came through the regression is what resonated. And the information that came through was about information about this gentleman that was assisting planet Earth through different timelines and shifts. And so I reached out through the QHHT Academy website, where I further learned that there are possibilities of healing instantaneously with the session. And it's all about just connecting yourself to your higher self to really to learn and surrender again. And for me, I found a practitioner and I went through a session, and that's where I think the gates kind of opened further for me. I was already awake, I was already in tune and aware of my abilities. I just didn't know what my path was. Well, why was I here? And I was able to learn that, which was fascinating because I saw myself go back to different past lives. And within that first session I had seen multiple past lives that resonated with exactly who I am now in this lifetime. So I learned that not only do we experience other times, but after those experiences, after the body dies, the body will, and mind and spirit will carry on those habits, those likings, those abilities onto the next life. And so one of the lives that I saw in that regression was a time in Egypt. And when it came to the point where I had to describe myself, that is when I described myself as Anubis. And this had happened multiple times during multiple sessions. And as an author and researcher myself, even regressing other people, I noticed that they would talk to me or describe me as my spirit of being as Anubis. And so that was something that I just kind of learned was a strong bond and connection. And I thought I was here just to resonate and heal that. But I learned that I'm really supposed to integrate with this counterpart as the trance channel that I do, which is the event uh, conversations with Anubis. But what it does, it brings me and Anubis into the same alignment and being so that we can kind of bring forward, more lost knowledge and healings and readings at the event so that people have the hands-on and live in-person experience to really uh, get that connection or questions if they want to ask questions, personal questions, or even just questions about life in general, and to me, it's pretty fascinating so far, but that's the nutshell, I think, of how I've come to create this event.
Very interesting. Let's kind of go back and pick this apart from the beginning because I want to hear a little bit more. So when you first found QHHT, can you tell me again what that stands for?
Yes, quantum healing hypnosis technique.
And that was invented by Dolores Cannon, correct?
It was co-created, let's say she was the pioneer who helped create this. But when you really go back in history and pick at that history, it really shows that she was using the technique to connect and converse with Nostradamus. And so when she was doing that, she had learned that with his experience with science and the spirit and time travel, etc., and with this tool and ability that she was using, they were able to co-create this masterpiece. And so I don't think a lot of people know that, but if you do go back and read her books of conversations with Nostradamus, you'll see more about that as well.
Interesting.
And actually, her husband, Dolores Cannon's husband, was actually the hypnotherapist in the family first. And so she practiced hypnotherapy, but she put a stop to it so she could raise her children. And then once it came back around, she picked it back up again.
Interesting. So then when you saw that and then you wanted to learn more about that, how did you know you wanted to learn to do it yourself as opposed to just have the sessions? Like what made you decide to become a practitioner yourself?
I think when I first saw the YouTube video of that woman regressing the man, I didn't know what was going on. I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. And so, even as a kid, I used to want to be a astronaut or go to space and travel space. And so it wasn't too far down the line. It was just a different, state of mind of getting there and exploring. But for me, I think that then taking my next step to the website, then learning, oh, now it has healing capabilities. This is something I might be interested in for myself, mainly because I was incapable of many things. And then once I went through this session, one of my questions was about my path and purpose and why I'm here. And I received many messages of the root cause problem of why that happened. But with my path and purpose, I learned that I was here to help change and heal millions of people's lives, and that people were going to come to me for sessions, that I was going to be an author, and that I was going to travel. And so it's like they didn't even hold back of,
Mhm.
oh, this is everything that's going to happen. And so from there, for me, it was a no-brainer, because they said, actually, the hypnotherapist said, well, why did she get into the car accident? And they said, well, she wasn't supposed to be a massage therapist. She was supposed to be a hypnotherapist. So right then and there, I immediately said, okay, I'll do it. If it's that easy, because at that point in my life, I was suffering, I was in tears, I was crying every single day, multiple times a day. I couldn't drive, I couldn't squat down, I couldn't twist my body. It was just excruciating. So for me, if it was as easy as just changing my path from being a massage therapist to a hypnotherapist, it was so easy for me. And it was easy because then that is when my body healed itself in the session. So it
That's what
really,
I wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask you about that. So you are healed now from that, would you say? And so kind of explain that to me. How did that happen?
yes. So within the session, after I heard that I was supposed to be a hypnotherapist instead of a massage therapist, within about, a minute or two, I felt my body correct itself. And by that, I mean the impact from being hit on the right side of the car had pushed everything to the left. So through MRIs and X-rays, nobody could find anything wrong with me. I looked fine, I looked normal, but on the inside, I felt terrible. And through the session, when my body healed itself, the nerves basically pushed themselves back to the right because they were off track. They were on the wrong path, such as I was. And so
Right.
my nerves had to get back on the right path and on the right track, such as I had to do. And it wasn't an immediate healing. My body did take about 2 years to rebuild my muscle mass and my core strength back, just so I could get back into hiking again. And I know I'm little, but I still lost weight, and I had to regain my weight back. And so it was just a really tough road to learn that I was late on my path and I was doing the things that I wasn't supposed to be doing. And it eventually caught up with me, and I wasn't listening to those signs and messages. And I feel like if I were listening to those, I wouldn't have gotten to the accident, because there were people in my life that didn't even know each other that were telling me, you should be a hypnotherapist. And I told them, I said, you guys are crazy. I don't believe in that stuff. And it was very eye-opening when it just unraveled that this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
So basically, your body was out of alignment because you were out of alignment with your path. And so in order to put your body back into alignment, you had to be aligned with what you were supposed to be doing. So as soon as you did that, that was the movement within your body. I mean, does that sound?
Yes, definitely. Yes, and at first, even just after the car accident, it first just started with my lower back. And then it started shooting down to both of my legs to my toes. And then over time, it started spreading up to my lower back, and then to my mid back, and then to my upper back. And so over time, it just got worse and worse and worse. So I wasn't fully impacted right away. I fully believe that if we do not address those things when it comes to us, then it will prohibit us in the future long run. And I really feel it was because I wasn't listening to the people around me, or I wasn't surrendering earlier, or I was fighting something. It was all internal. And even though I wanted the answers, it really had to come to me in the right divine moment and time. And I really feel like that's when we wake up, when some of us really need that, is in that darkest moment. Because not only was I just physically disabled, everything in my life was falling apart. And so I felt suicidal as well. And I know that other star seeds can resonate with that struggle and that path to really find your truth and your calling. And so I think for me, it really took that's what it took for me personally.
So you mentioned that you are a star seed. Do you have any specific star system that you align with?
Yes, Lyran, ancient souls of Lyra, Sirius, definitely the Pleiadians, the Octurians. And I can also share that, I know that you wanted me to share something that not a lot of people will know. Well, this might be our chance. So I've been abducted ever since I was 3 years old, and I've been taken up to craft on even the mothership, but it didn't really start as that quite of a grand introduction, but they would take me and my being for classes, for psychic abilities classes on the craft. And that is when I met other ancient gray ETs. And I would also observe other students or children or beings in the class. And there we would learn about color or frequency and how to use our abilities, such as remote viewing, or how to read other people's energy without talking or communication. And it was also interesting because I would see that as I grew older and graduated from these abilities classes, that I soon became the teacher of these classes. And so from being a teacher, I was then in front of the class teaching these younger children, and the Octurians were observing me in a separate room where they could see through a screen. And when I excelled at that and was able to teach and guide a full class, then I would so-called graduate onto a higher command, which would be onto the mothership with other beings. And there's all kinds of beings on the mothership. And I really do mean that, you're going to see the reptiles and the Nordics, the tall whites, the little bitty grays, tall grays. And so I have a lot of experience with psychic abilities as well, psychic kinesis and telepathy and remote viewing, clairaudient, clairvoyant. And so I also use the abilities to assist people with their healing. So I'm very good at medically intuition or psychic surgery. And so if anybody needs ceremonial healing or guidance within themselves to unlock anything, I can also assist with that as well.
Interesting. One of the things that caught me in that was, so you were with you were teaching the little grays and the Arcturians were watching. Is that what you said?
Yes, well, I was actually teaching other students in the class, so there would be other
Oh,
humans, so other human children, that might be other star seeds as well, you know, and the whole goal of this class was really so that we can be in tune with our own sense of being for evolution, you know, because a lot of us think that we need to talk to communicate or to express ourselves, but really we can do all of that without words, and we can send images to each other. And a lot of the times I can see visions of future timelines. And so it's really how open and aware that we want to be to these abilities. And I think that if we can just embrace them as a natural cause or organic sense of way of being, then, you know, there's really nothing to be scared of when it comes to that.
yeah, I totally agree. That's really fascinating. So, would you say that you're still being abducted? Like, is it something that's just constantly going on throughout your life? Do you even call it abduction anymore? Or do you call it visiting? I
Right.
mean,
Well, I like to throw the word vacation in there as well, because you know, the human density of this Earth planet just gets to be so much with the, you know, physicality. And but you know, I actually do ask them to take me on little vacations, and they will. It's interesting when I do that. I have to be prepared for strange things to happen within the next couple weeks. I've
mhm,
had so for example, I asked them to take me, and within about a week, I noticed that my body was floating out of bed. And
mhm.
my head was kind of tilted to the right, and I saw my room being illuminated with this bright light. And I knew that I didn't sleep with lights on. And my body was being lifted out of bed slowly, just very this slow float. And I thought to myself, okay, I think I know what's happening, and I would like to be conscious and aware, and I would like for them to allow me to be awake during this experience, my human self. And as soon as I turned my head, looked above my bed, I saw a cluster of lights. There was no ceiling. It did not exist. It was just bright lights, little bitty uh, collection that looked almost like a flower of life. And I saw white and blue. And I thought to myself, oh, that's cool. And then as soon as I said that, I went back to sleep. So I'm pretty sure they did not allow me to experience that one, but that was one moment that I almost got to experience that that transition, I guess you would call it. But you know, I've had other visitors, and I'll see orbs here and there. I'll get flashes of blue orbs or white orbs. And I've even done meditations to where I've had orbs that are floating above my head.
Mhm.
And, you know, it's just really fascinating at what beings are around us.
Interesting. And so, when how did you discover that you had been going through all these abductions? Was that through hypnosis?
Yes, it actually was through hypnosis. And my first sighting is actually what triggered that. I had my first sighting in 2015. I was driving back home from White Sands, New Mexico,
I
with a
love White
friend.
Sands.
It's so beautiful.
Yes.
And I feel I called them in, and it was because my friend was bored on the way drive back, you know, and she said, well, what do we do now? And I'm like, I don't know, look for UFO. And she's like, well, how do I do that? And I was like, oh, it's easy, just look up. And I completely forgot about it. I didn't even think that anything was going to happen. But, you know, it kind of, a little bit of me did wonder. I was like, I actually wonder if that's actually going to show up. So, but a bit later on down the drive, the sun had already gone down, and I see her looking through the window, and I think she's looking at the stars, because that's what I would do. And her head keeps turning, and eventually she says, I keep seeing something in the sky, and it's moving all over the place. And so I lean forward through the window, and I see this cluster of orange lights. They're different sizes, they're not moving, they're not blinking, nothing. I look at them for probably a few seconds and then they disappear. I immediately grab my phone, press record, give it to her. I say, record this. And then I pull over on the side of the freeway. We were in Bingham, New Mexico, very small rural town. There's no city lights, it's very quiet. I pulled over and we're both standing outside of the car and we see this orange cluster of lights zipping back and forth. There's no pattern. And we're watching this for at least a minute or two, and then it zips off and it's gone. And I think that is what triggered this awakening and these memories, because we did get some on camera, and that is on my YouTube channel. And so that capture is available for anyone to see. And
That's awesome.
after that sighting, I had dreams almost every night of extraterrestrials. And I wanted to know more. Who was in that craft? And so I did a meditation with her. I said, you know, why don't we try a dual meditation? And our intentions were set differently, but I knew the power of a single meditation with two people. So my intention was to connect with who was in that craft. And they telepathically showed up. I saw a gray being, and he put his forehead to mine, and he said that we were family and that we were here and that they weren't going to hurt us. And I gave him permission to observe without hurting. And I haven't had any issues. I've had only but fun since then. And I really think that in that meditation, I felt my heart chakra open from my back. And I think that's when I really knew that connection was authentic and that I wouldn't have to be afraid of it at all. So I've embraced it.
That's amazing.
But yes, through hypnosis.
So why don't we talk a little bit about what your workshop is going to be? So your workshop, once again, is going to be Friday, February 9th at 2 p.m. At the Conscious Life Expo at the LAX Hilton. Tell me what you're going to be doing in your workshop.
Sure. In the workshop, I am going to be going into as a trance channel, and that's just the mindset of being in an alpha theta state of mind. And I'm going to be bringing through the essence of Anubis. And with that, I will be offering healings and readings to anybody who is interested. Now, the time is limited, so I don't know if everybody is going to be able to get to ask a question, but we are going to have a hands-on. I will be asking people to come up forward if they want. And it's really just a hands-on, in-person experience to learn more about the ancient god Anubis, or even just to ask more questions about yourself. If anybody has any struggles in their life or blocks or questions about their personal life, or even if you have physical ailments, that might be something to ask about as well. If you ask a question and it's, say you have a physical ailment and you don't mention that to Anubis, if it needs to be presented and brought up, he will speak on it, and more than likely he will provide the route for you to see why that is there and how to release that. So people can expect readings, of course, but also that healing to take place instantly or within time as people do their own work, as they also get back on their own track. Because I know that a lot of us can be on the wrong track, right? Just as I was in that car accident. So, you know, a lot of people might have the aching pains in their body and not realize, well, why is this in my hip? Well, it's because you're not moving forward. And so it's something like that that can be addressed easily as just changing your path. It's well worth it. It really is. And so the workshop will just cover that. And I'm going to share more about how we can use our own sense of self and higher consciousness to heal ourselves. And, you know, we don't really need to reach out to other people, but I do like to show that it is possible. And I really feel that it's a good opportunity for anybody to kind of step forward into a path, especially if they're not afraid to look at their darkness, because Anubis is all about, you know, revealing the darkness. And he's not going to be, his deliverance is not always very nice. It can be very straightforward and in your face of like, hey, you need to look at this and this is what it is. And so I really like that about it too, because it really, you really do have to surrender to the information. And I will also have golden ankh necklaces for the people who come up and get those readings or ask questions or get the healings as well.
Anubis was one of the ancient Egyptian gods. Was he realized on the planet? Was he an ET that was a god? Who was Anubis?
Yes, so thank you for asking. So what I've learned about Anubis through my own personal hypnosis regressions is that Anubis, the essence, the spirit, the soul, it did come from Sirius. So such as other Egyptian gods, I think planet Sirius was very special for a lot of beings. And so he came in as an extraterrestrial being, but to assist, and the exact role that he did. And that role was to take care of the body so that when these other ancient Egyptian gods, which, you know, to him, you know, it was so confusing. Why are we gods? You know, we're just like anybody else. But with that, he really was just here to assist those bodies, take care of the preservation so that the souls can transform and transmute themselves to another lifetime, but yet leave their essence and spirit here. And I've really noticed that over time. I would say, I can't remember the year it was, but I saw personally, I saw on the news that they had uncovered hundreds of mummy tombs. And there was something, and I didn't know that I had a connection with Anubis, but something within me was just so furious. And I know that the importance of his work was very delicate and sensitive. And not a lot of people got to see him and his work in an action. And so I really feel like there was a strong connection to preserving these bodies the way that he did. And so much energy and prayers and gifts were put into this process, you know, just to be, you know, ripped out of the ground or exposed or opened. And so him being a extraterrestrial god, as I guess you would say, it it wasn't a role that he was proud of having. It was just a role that he was here to live and to do. I guess what I mean to say is that he was very private and personal. And so I guess that's why we don't hear a lot about Anubis. And even before I learned my connection to Anubis, I always wondered that as well, is how come we don't really hear too much about him and his history?
That's interesting. So, I think I got this right. So, what you're saying is Anubis helped us to um renew our souls? Is that kind of what you're saying? Like to kind of keep the soul going after death, to then reincarnate? Is that what you mean, kind of?
I guess really just to preserve the body. And then I guess in a sense to them at that time, the mind, body, and spirit, everything about the being itself was very sacred. The brain and the heart, the eyes, the organs, the hair, the skin, it was all very, very sacred and important because it is the capsule and the container and the vessel that transports our sacred souls as a god. Not even a god. I mean, you're a god, I'm a god, people listening here are gods, everything is God. And so once we can kind of understand and get past that, and then also look at the time that we have now and how we take care of the body after it dies, we throw it in a box, we put it in a crematory. There are other options now where you can do natural burials or water burials, water cremations. You could do the casket burials as well, but how well do we really take care of the body now and give thanks to that body? Someone might see their dead grandmother and think, ew, but really it's something to give thanks for because it's something that has carried this soul through so many lessons and through so many lives and through so many teachings and through so much wisdom and knowledge and education, sharing things with people. And, I really think that after the body dies, it's a whole new life. It's a whole new start. And so if we can give thanks to, for example, we might have a bad relationship in our life, but if we actually give thanks to that relationship and embrace it for what it taught us and how it got us through to where we are now or how it made us stronger, then we can look at that and give thanks and praise to that and look at it in a more positive way. So for him, I think it was just an art. It was an art of being. It was an art of, preserving the body and the soul and the mind and the organs, because our organs work involuntarily. We don't have to ask them to. We don't have to ask to breathe. And I think even with down to our own cells, our very cells, I think that is the most important part, is because we do carry forward lifetimes and lifetimes. We are the library of knowledge, and we are this Akashic library within our own selves. We are this encyclopedia and we don't even realize. And so I think that if we can embrace and love the body and care for the body, even in life, through death and through that process and transition, and even the afterlife, and to respect that afterlife, then I really think that it would really change people's minds and perspectives of how we live our lives each day, even because in that way it would bring us more into the present moment, and we would give thanks for our food, because it is also the food that gives us life and we don't even realize it, such as water, and I think that's also important to really just kind of consider that we are precious beings, and we're not here for very long. And we do have so much, we have so much to offer that it would just be such a waste to disrespect our body and mind after we die.
Someone recently said to me, use the word reverence in terms of our body, to have reverence for our body. And I feel like that fits perfectly with what you're saying,
Yeah.
to kind of remind ourselves that we are this vessel that houses this sacred piece of the universe, and having reverence for that seems really important.
Yes, yes. It's not every day that we give thanks to our bodies. And, even if you're just putting lotion on or brushing your hair, you have to give thanks for even just that moment, because there is going to come a time where you're not going to be that young and you're not going to have all that hair and it's going to be 20, 30 years from now, and you're going to look completely different. So and I think for him, it was about preserving that beauty of the human body, and not even just the human body, but the other gods' bodies as well, because we are sacred. We do come from different timelines and dimensions, and we have the ability to create.
Interesting. I love that. Is there anything else that we should know before we come see you February 9th?
No, I think just come prepared for the workshop, just prepare for direct readings and healings if that's what you're open to. If you want to just come as an observer, that's completely fine as well. I think you'll definitely get the experience even just as the observer. And it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be fun. I don't host this event very often. So if anybody has the chance to come see it at the Conscious Life Expo, that's the place to see it. And there's going to be many, many, many people there. So first come, first serve. And I have a feeling it's going to fill up. So everybody is welcome. And it is a free workshop. So I believe a day pass is required, or at least a Friday day pass. If you don't want to do the weekend pass, but it'll be worth it. It's 90 minutes, 2 o'clock to 3:30. And I will also be doing a book signing and book awards as well. That's going to be 3:45 for the book signing. That's right after the event. And the book awards, if you want to vote for my book, that is at the Conscious Life Expo.com website, and you can locate my book. It is called Quantum Disclosure Project, Revelations 2 Evolutions. And within my second book, it covers through regression. Since I am a hypnotherapist, I have to do something with my path at work. And so with what I do is I compile the regressions from research to reveal our ancient hidden knowledge, sacred wisdom, hidden timelines, anything that's been changed, altered, or hidden, or even forgotten. And so it really brings forth our evolution of who we are. It talks about the evolution of different starseed lineages, or the evolution of different sacred sites, even such as Göbekli Tepe, or Egypt, or Stonehenge. And so if you want to learn more about starseed lineages, or even hear activation messages, there are activation messages in there for the starseeds who might not be aware or might not be awake yet. There are personal messages in there for everybody. So it's very knowledgeable, it's very expansive. And the first book is the beginning. That talks about the beginnings of different things, such as Jesus, dinosaurs, Nephilim, you name it, it's in there. So there's a lot to talk about within that book. So anybody can vote there at the Conscious Life Expo website.
Yes, and then also you have a website, correct? If people want to learn more about you before the expo?
Yes, I do. The website is quantumdisclosureproject.com, and you can find events and even episodes. You can find my YouTube channel or any social media and any other platforms that I might be on, but you can locate anything there, such as my hypnosis regressions, my publications, or any other interviews as well.
Excellent. Well, it has been such a pleasure to get to know more about you today. And I know everybody's going to want to come and see you on, once again, Friday, February 9th, 2 p.m. And you can, once again, vote for Melanie's book at www.consciouslifeexpo.com and just look for the book awards. Voting ends February 1st. The awards ceremony for that is going to be at the Saturday night party at the Expo. Expo's Got Talent. We will be giving away the awards for that. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to call us on the 800 number or visit Melanie at her website. Yeah, it's been so much fun to learn all this about you, Melanie. Thank you so much for everything. And thank you, everybody listening to the Conscious Life at Expo podcast. It is our pleasure to bring you more information all the time. So thank you, and we will see you next time.
Thank you, Kristine.